We've been following very closely the disturbing and terrifying phenomenon of just in general Trump inducing very intentionally and unfortunately successfully fear into the media landscape by getting different institutions to capitulate to him, using his government power to punish them until, I just did a Gavin Newsom, sorry, punish them until they give in. And then the idea is if he can make an example out of CBS, Paramount, by going, I'm going to make your life a living hell. I'm going to sue you, but then you have to settle with me despite this being a completely frivolous lawsuit, because otherwise I'm going to block this merger where you stand to make a lot of money and that you really want. The idea is you do that and Paramount completely capitulated, and you show all the other outlets you haven't yet targeted, this is what happens if you don't do what I want. And there's an update to this story that is even more terrifying and just, they're so blatant about it. And to tell us about that, I want to bring in Brittany Page. Brittany, bitch. Ooh, slow motion is Brittany, bitch.
Wow, I like that.
I appreciate you being here. And at the top, I'll say go to Brittany Page's channel if you want to support our work as we go through this segment. So what's going on here, Brittany?
Yeah, well, I love that you set all of that up because I did have all of that prepared, but there you are. You took it away. You knew exactly what to do. FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr, as a part of this new escalation, so he approved an $8 billion merger between Paramount and Skydance this week. And as a part of that deal, this ongoing battle with CBS, Paramount, and now this approved merger, CBS is now going to have a bias monitor put in place. A person that is going to be evaluating, apparently, what is put on air. And Brendan Carr has been making the rounds. He's been doing various interviews going on and promoting the role of this bias monitor. And the things that he's saying raise a lot of different questions. I mean, do Republicans still care about the First Amendment? They claim to care about it. Do they actually care about it? Does Donald Trump now sign off on what is allowed to air on CBS? Is he going to be overseeing and have veto power over what is on CBS News? There's a lot of different questions here, but I think it's important to hear directly from FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr on this, and specifically what this bias monitor will be doing. And so he went on, he did an interview on Newsmax where he gave some details about what this bias monitor and what their role will actually be.
Let's bring in Brendan Carr, the Federal Communications Chairman, FCC Chairman. That is a big deal. Sir, this is a done deal moments ago. And I assume you knew that before you came on television.
Right, yeah, the FCC has just signed off on this acquisition of CBS by Skydance. We did so after the purchasing companies made some significant new commitments. One, they made commitments to address bias and restore fact-based reporting. I think that's so important. I mean, look.
Let me just pause for a second, because some of this, if you're just stumbling across politics today, seems like, what's wrong with that? We want our news to, first of all, First Amendment, but there's some regulation, whatever. But here's that word bias in MAGA world to Trump's leadership, it just means anti-Trump. That's all it means. Right. Okay?
Totally.
So just keep that in mind as you're listening to this.
The American public simply do not trust these legacy media broadcasters. And so if they stick with that commitment, we're sort of trust but verify mode, that'll be a big win. Also, they've committed to ending invidious forms of DEI discrimination. And third, committing to investing in local news and journalism, which is really trusted. So if these changes are abided by, and we intend that they will be, it'll be a good win, a little bit of progress towards restoring trust that the American people need to have in the broadcasters.
We heard a little bit about what they're going to do different on 60 Minutes. Is there anything beyond that you can tell us about what they're going to do differently, fact-based? That's kind of a cultural shock to them. It's going to be.
Yeah, it might be news to some folks over there. One of the things they're going to have to do is put an ombudsman in place for 2 years. So basically a bias monitor that will report directly to the president. So that's something that's significant that we're going to see happening as well. And again, as you noted, they've made commitments about unbiased, fact-based.
So first of all, the journalistic ethics of an institution like 60 Minutes, which is where this all started, is, with its flaws, 10 gazillion trillion million times more credible, more attached to the facts than any of the outlets they would cite as their favorites that Trump or even I'm sure Brendan would list as doing a great job. They actually do care to an extent that right-wing media outlets couldn't possibly, and some left-wing media outlets couldn't possibly get their head around. So I just want to note that to the point where whenever all this was going down, these really respected staff members and the executive producer of 60 Minutes had to leave and resign, saying, I see what's happening. They're forcing us to be less anti-Trump. Not even that, but to not do honest, accurate reporting if it makes Trump look bad is really the way I should phrase it. And that's unacceptable. We have to do reporting regardless of who it makes look good or bad. And that wording, Brittany, of him saying the biased babysitter would report directly to the president led to some confusion.
Yeah, and according to Matt Novak, a reporter with Gizmodo, they have reached out to see when you say that the bias monitor is reporting to the president, do you mean the president of Paramount? Do you mean the president of the United States? Is Donald Trump going to be the one who has veto power over what is being talked about, what is allowed to air on CBS? And you're so right to talk about all of the different elements here related to how he keeps using the phrase straightforward reporting or non-biased news or fact checking, how people care about facts, because he's also saying we're anti-DEI and CBS has made an agreement to not engage in DEI. And so when you start hearing these things, you realize, well, this administration has the thumb on the scale for what they want news organizations to talk about and what they don't want to hear them talk about. And it's pretty alarming to hear the FCC commissioner pretty directly talking about certain topics that they don't want to be on the table.
It's so brazen. And this is, I come back to this, but I remember having so many of these social experiences. Some of them were on TV, like on Piers Morgan or something, or debating on Tim Pool, or just in my personal life, where I would go down the list of all the things Trump had said about media outlets and them being criminals and how they shouldn't be allowed to do, and the government should intervene to stop MSNBC. And then as he started approaching the, being inaugurated, him bringing these lawsuits against Ann Seltzer for a poll he didn't like, CBS, and I would go down this list and be like, do you see how you tell me, and this is what MAGA used to always say, I don't know if they would stand by this still, but you tell me that you care so much about the First Amendment and protecting the freedom of the press, but then you have represented in Trump just an outright attack. But over and over, I would be told, where did he do it? Where did he do it? What do you mean? What did he do? And I would give some examples in the first term, I was saying, but we've really heard the rhetoric escalate leading into this second term, and we really shouldn't give him this power. And then we go, nah, that's just Trump. He just vents. He's just venting at media outlets. And then honestly, more severe than even what I was predicting has come true. And what's so heartbreaking is in my personal life, and definitely with those prominent figures, there's no acknowledgement that if Biden were doing this, can you imagine Biden doing this to right-wing outlets? MAGA would correctly be going insane. They called things that Biden was doing that weren't threats to the First Amendment. I cannot imagine if they have the type of fodder, the type of real justification that we're seeing here. And so one of the things doing this job that you realize a lot is that most people who you engage with on principles they have, that I really take them at their word when they say, sorry, I'm just motivated. The reason I don't like the Democrats, I'm just motivated by wanting to protect the First Amendment, and cancel culture goes after that. I'm like, wait, cancel culture is not the same thing as the government, blah, blah, blah. They're like, no, but that's exactly. It's the spirit of the, right? And and then you engage on those principles, and the lesson you learn over and over is, most people don't actually care about the principles they have. They have a conclusion and they work back from it and pretend it's informed by principles, but it's not really.
That's exactly right. And I think we've gotten to a point where we say so often that things that are not actually a violation of the First Amendment are, that people are now confused, right? Like someone will say that someone deleted their comment on like their personal profile, and they'll be like, this is a violation of my First Amendment. We're like, no, okay, that's not actually what that is. But then real violations of the First Amendment, people don't actually code as actual violations of the First Amendment, which I think is a big problem. But, Brendan Carr, he's proud of what he's doing at the FCC. He's really excited about it. He's continuing to go on and talk about this bias monitor because he really believes in it. And There's actually one remaining Democrat on the FCC commission named Ana Gomez. And in a separate interview that Brendan Carr did, this one was on CNBC Squawk on the Street, the host actually asks Brendan Carr to respond to a comment that this one remaining Democrat on the FCC commission made, Ana Gomez.
So, again, when Ana Gomez writes, you're imposing never-before-seen controls over newsroom decisions and editorial judgment in direct violation of the First Amendment, you say what?
I think it's time for a change, and the procedures that we put in place in this deal have lots of precedent. For instance, there's been ombudsmans put in place by the FCC before. We're putting a biased ombudsman in place here. We're addressing DEI. The prior FCC during the Biden years put pro-DEI commitments in different transactions, and so we're unwinding that type of approach. And we're frankly taking a trust but verify perspective here. I think this could go a long way to restoring America's trust in media. And again, the media itself, I think, has undermined itself over these last couple of years. When you look at the stuff that Colbert is doing, the idea that, a partisan carnival makes economic sense, these are business decisions at the end of the day. And again,
I want to stick forks into my eyes while I stick them into my ears at the same time and just see if they can touch inside of my brain. I'm so sick of that talking point. So we've already addressed, he'll say these things that sound nice and fun and flowery, bias, but we know what it's really about. But I hear this talking point a lot. It just doesn't make business sense to be like constantly crapping all over Trump, which is funny actually that he brought that up because he should be making the argument this isn't about making the media less critical of Trump, but then he cites the example of Colbert, which is he's upset with Colbert for being anti-Trump. But
he gives the game away.
Right. But the way he worded it was it doesn't make business sense to be just partisan. Do you know the most successful cable news company? Fox News. Are you, Brendan? Look at me. Mr. Carr, look at me.
Yeah.
Honk, honk. Mr. Carr, look at me. Tell me. Yes, that was a Carr joke. Tell me if Brendan Carr goes beep, beep. Tell me if you can say with a straight face that Fox News is nonpartisan and they are very successful financially. So actually what we've learned is that it doesn't make business sense for a lot of outlets to be accurate, to be journalistically, credible. And these hyper partisan models of media are becoming more and more successful, which is dividing us further, which is making people's access to accurate information worse. And 60 Minutes was actually pretty damn good at, for the most part, doing honest and accurate reporting. And that's what they're going after, because guess what? Honest, accurate reporting doesn't make Trump look very great. How do you honestly, accurately report on him on tape saying he sexually abuses people and then being found liable for that? Just factually laying those facts out. It's not going to look good for him. And so please, you cannot like Colbert, you cannot like anti-Trump people, you can think they're not funny, fine, but dispel with his dumb talking point that what MAGA really wants is more straight news. No, you don't. You want your news gay as hell. That doesn't make sense, but you get the point. You want it not straight. You want it to be partisan. Again, sorry, I was talking over it.
We have to keep our country gay.
Thank you. And that's the opposite of what you want, because the outlets all of you MAGAs cheering this on, watch, are the least accurate. The ones that studies reveal leave you the least informed, not on like a partisan opinion, but just what's going on in the world, what's happening in the country. You are less informed than somebody watching more liberal news outlets. And business models are leaning more towards bias because that's what's more successful. And honest journalism is going bye-bye.
Yeah, and it's a scary time. I mean, it's genuinely scary also to hear him talk about the complete opposite, where he's trying to say that he wants to invest in local journalism. They don't actually want to invest in local journalism. I mean, private equity is destroying journalism, primarily local journalism as well, and they're doing nothing to rein that in. I mean, every day we see Caroline Leavitt from the White House podium. We know that this is not an administration that cares about facts, that cares about being honest. It's all about propping up Donald Trump's ego. And unfortunately, now they're trying to get their tentacles in as many of our systems in order to prop up his ego. And that's really scary because the FCC, yes, they regulate local stations, but they don't regulate programming. That is not their role. And Brendan Carr up front stated that he was going to push Donald Trump's agenda at the FCC. And so he's living up to his promise, unfortunately, that he made to Donald Trump. But I know people watching this, and this is something that happens to me. I'll be watching something and I'm like, okay, but what action is being taken? What are people doing about this? We don't just want to sit around and hear about this. And thankfully, there is some action being taken on this. There are people that are trying to push back, just like we see in much of the Trump administration. How much of it is working? Not a lot, but people are still trying, right? And we see that with the Freedom of the Press Foundation. And they just filed a disciplinary complaint letter against Brendan Carr. They accuse him of violating legal ethics rules. They describe his actions as politically motivated to pressure news organizations and benefit Donald Trump. So they're accusing him of abusing his authority in his role as FCC commissioner and as a licensed attorney. And they have sent this complaint in saying that he's misrepresenting laws and using his power to intimidate media outlets. So this from the Freedom of the Press Foundation is important because in his role, he does have a lot of power. He is using that power. He's using it in a dangerous and unfortunate way. But we need people who are talking about the story, number one, but also working to push back on what he's trying to do. Thankfully, the Freedom of the Press Foundation is trying to do that.
Well, Brittany, thank you so much. Remind people where they can support you.
You can support me right here on YouTube. Please go to my YouTube channel, just search my name, Brittany Page, or click the link in the description below, and I would love to see you over there.
Thanks.